All right, welcome everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. It's the last day of Global Entrepreneurship Week, at least for our sessions here today. And it's really an honor and a privilege that I've had you with us for the last few days. And I hope that you got something throughout the process of being with us through the Global Entrepreneurship Week. From the opening remarks to the different sessions with all the awesome speakers that we've had, really thank you for your time and effort. Today's discussion is really putting this whole idea together from our Resilient Entrepreneur Program, specifically the Canvas. So what I'm going to do with that is walk you through, and those who watch the different pieces of it, we have chunked it up into a smaller biteable sections. So therefore you could just listen to 15 to 30 minutes, each one of those bites. While we do this in 17 weeks, 14 weeks, and 7 weeks, I'm trying to do this now with an hour with you to help you understand how to leverage this canvas, the resilient canvas, in a way that you could implement immediately in your business. So with that being said, if there's something specific you want to hear or get out of today's discussion, those who are joining us via Zoom in the comments, and those who are watching this as a replay, please feel free to put those in the chat, in the comments versus the chat. Sorry about that. And again, this is our last one for this week. So therefore, please feel free to use your camera phone to get the QR code and have access to all the slides, as well as join the community that we have online. I'm going to quickly brush through, not necessarily my personal journey, but about the Canvas and how we came up with it, as well as a little bit about ISM. And I'm going to dive right into the Canvas and how you could use it. As usual, if you're joining us for the first time, for those who joined us before, you could maybe add new things about you. For those who are joining us for the first time, just your first name, and if you already have it as your screen name, then just go ahead and just put one fun fact about you that's not in your resume. I always like to start with a question, and today, since we have audiences from all over the world, we just chose to make it a little different than normal. So with that being said, I'm based in Detroit today. I'm calling in from Detroit, and I'm sure that there's someone calling from somewhere, but we just picked the UK, London specifically. And thank you, Michael, for that. So the question is, Detroit is how many times smaller than London? Those who are watching this, please put in the chat A, B, C, or D, or you could actually do it in the Q&A section, since it's a webinar style approach. And those who are watching a replay, you could just put in the comments. 5 times bigger, 6 times bigger, smaller, 7 times smaller, or 4.4 times smaller. All right. And the correct answer is D, 4.4. So who knew, right? Now, maybe just a fun fact about where we are and how much smaller it is from London. A lot of times, actually, Detroit is one of the bigger cities in the state. But to give you a perspective of space-wise, at least, how big it is compared to London. You already know that I've learned so many great things from amazing people all around the world, working locally with them at their local level to start or grow businesses, or to deploy a program in that community. That taught us a lot. And throughout these 22 years of being around these 100+ countries, 500+ cities, it really gave us a lot of insights, listening and learning and reflecting. Our brand, as well as the brands that we carry in our programs, are globally active, and that gives us just an experience to understand how to work with other people. These are some of the organizations that we've been lucky and fortunate enough to work with in different capacities, from partnering with them to deploy a program or organizing activities or discussions. As you may know, our work is in 2 tracks. Those who are listening for the first time, we work with the individuals who are starting or growing businesses or thinking about businesses. And then we also work with the organization that supports them designing those programs and deploying them. Our expertise around the world has been known to be in the business coaching side, in the strategy side, and the ecosystem side, as well as, of course, in the development of those programs, or technical, or sometimes you may know as technical assistance service providers. We deliver over 50-some programs on a yearly basis, an average, and basically we have many programs are already out of the box. These are some of them, meaning that we already have a syllabus, curriculum, online portal forum, online AI that help access or support them, workbooks, reading books, things of that nature, as well as one-on-one coaching structure and everything else in between, whether it's a cohort or one-on-one coaching style. And then, of course, we ready to deploy them, or of course, we could custom make any other program based on our learnings from these different experiences. Today, you're going to feel some of it because I'm going to have you through Zoom, and we have, maybe some people in person. And then what will happen is we will have you already in the online community. If you use the QR code to join, you're already in that. The one thing that we're not giving you access to is our yellow plan, which is a plan that has AI in it to help you write the plan that we're going to discuss today. The syllabus, you're somewhat going to get to see a little bit of the syllabus today. And then we have workbook and reading book that are, clear and included in a webinar that we're providing to you today. Let's dive right in. Life is full of surprises. I'm sure you could relate to that because you may be surprised today. Maybe you were surprised yesterday. I'm sure you've been surprised throughout your career to do what you're doing. My personal journey, just to give you perspective, growing up as a Palestinian refugee, living in Kuwait during the first Gulf War, ending up to run a retail plaza because of the war and because of a demand. Although it wasn't my job, I just did that because of the war. And then what happened is I ran into trouble, so I fled, and based on the fleeing, I came to the US. And when I first started, it was a t-shirt business where I was actually homeless, sleeping in different spots. And my t-shirt business slowly allowed me to eat from the t-shirts. I learned how to, bring perfumes and colognes from different places that helped me to grow for about 500 people in 7 states. And then from there, I joined a small, big department stores called Macy's Department Stores, where I was one of the executives with turning around some of their stress areas, but also helping them expand some of their effort. And then I joined a small company called Pure Beauty at the time, buying mom and pop shop and converting them to corporates and opening 7 stores in 2 different states. And in 2003, I founded ISM, which basically supports entrepreneurs starting or growing businesses. And then since 2008, we have shifted our focus not only to do that with the entrepreneurs and small business owners, but also to support the organization that supports them to make sure that they meet them where they are. One of the things you're going to hear me talk a lot about is the learning that I am going to share with you. Yes, some of it reflection of my personal journey, but it really became to reality back in 2020 when I started consulting with over 61 countries' leaders, as well as entrepreneurs and organizations throughout those countries, and listening to them and reflecting back on what they were saying and what they weren't saying, just because of my work relationship with them. I learned that they all have what I'm going to call this canvas, information, knowledge. The challenge was that they really never had it in an organized fashion, nor had a process to follow it. So they were naturally, some of them, able to follow it on their own, and some worked hard on it. And by me presenting it in this way for you today, I'm hoping that allows you to use it in a better way. If you have those skills, if you don't have the skills, maybe you could learn how to gain them. This is all explained in one of my books called Start Where You Are, where I walk you through my personal journey, and then I walk you through the canvas page by page. This is a little snippet of what that book is all about. Since you're going to be able to see this again, no reason to dwell on this because you could go back and pause as much as you can or do whatever you like. Throughout the book, you'll find what I call FinGen moments, and basically it's the idea of having a cup of coffee or cup of tea. And it's a show that I do. It's a podcast show that you could watch on YouTube, or you could subscribe to it for free in your Apple or whatever other channel that you use for your podcast. Let's start with this. We all see things differently. And when I present something to you, you may see something more than what I'm presenting. You may see something less than what I'm presenting, but we all see something, or at least envision something or think of something when I display something. And I'm curious to hear from you. What do you see when I display this black and white photo? Anyone? Feel free to put that in the chat. box or the Q&A section. And for those who are watching replay, as usual, please in the comment sections, feel free to do that. And I'm sure the creativity, I've heard so many things in the past, from map to C to everything else. And this is what I mean by you have the information, but it's not necessarily organized in a way that is meaningful to you. And I'm hoping once I give you this frame or reference, that you're able to use it in a way that is meaningful to you. And this is what we're going to do. We're going to put a frame around this image that you have. And once you see it this way, it becomes hard for you not to see it. And yes, thank you for those who are watching. It is a cow. I'm sure you could see, I could use my little pencil if you'd like. The eyes, here's one, here's two. The ears, right? Here's one, here's two. The body, right, of the cow, the nose and the mouth right here. So I'm sure by now it's becoming a little bit clear that I want you to see what I want you to see with this. And now that you see it, it becomes harder to see it. So I'm hoping that you leave today with this canvas, that you're able to go back and use it. And with time, I'm hoping that it becomes naturally to you, that you use it over and over without you having to think about it or having to see it to walk through the process. But if you do, you will have it, right? So take a look, and you're probably thinking now, how did I not see that? Well, it's magic, just kidding. It's not, it's really about framing and about understanding and about organizing. So let's dive right into this canvas. The canvas initially, just to give you through the process, it really started initially with circles. And then what I learned with the circles, that people really thought in this kind of order specifically. You could mix it up. I'm just going to say that if you follow this process in this order, it's going to be easier for you to flow and follow the order of how you could leverage this canvas to advance your challenge to be a better spot. So you start with a mindset, and the mindset, then you move to the self. And a lot of times you'll say first, most people are not self-aware. I agree. And I would say many of the people that we work with are not self-aware, but they're self-aware of certain things. I'm going to highlight those. Or should be aware of certain things. I'm going to highlight those. Then you're going to think about the business. And we've had, because we've been doing this now for 5 or 6 years in 60-some countries, we've learned a lot. So sometimes you'll say this business section could actually be personal section. Very true. You could literally replace the word business with personal, and we're actually exploring doing that, or just, something else, right? And what you want to do there is you want to think about what you have, what you could leverage, what you could offer, what you could pilot, and then the last block is how do you move this forward? So these 4 blocks have a lot into it, and each one of them we usually spend weeks on because there's just so much to unfold in every one of them. And when I give you a little bit of details of what those things are, it becomes a little bit more clear. In the mindset, we're going to talk about entrepreneurship, leadership, and compassion or empathy. In the self-awareness, we're going to talk about you and what's around you. And we're going to talk about how to acknowledge and move to actions and how to repurpose some things, personal level. Then we're going to move to the business side. And again, it could be personal for your home. What do you have? Making a list of that, thinking about how you could leverage some of that, what you could offer from what you have that you could leverage, and how do you pilot or test it. And then all of these things are awesome, but how do you move them forward, right? How do you move this idea forward? And that's what we're going to talk about at the last. At any time, feel free to put a question in the chat, raise your hand, or for those who are watching replay, use a comment. The one thing I'm going to say is you need to be consistently ready to adapt to change. If you're not, it becomes hard. Now, one thing I will say, also be careful, because if you're just always changing because of sake of changing, that maybe also could be a challenge, because sometimes you got to give something, what I call it, its life, to give you the fruit. One example I use is olive trees. Olive trees, if you grow it today, you're not going to receive anything. Usually it's like 5 to 7 years time frame before you start seeing the olives on it. So you got to give it that, I'm going to call it life cycle, to start giving you the fruit that you have started. So, but also be ready to adapt to any changes may come, meaning that if you have to move it, you got to move it. If you don't have to move it, it'll be better. So let's jump into this mindset first. There are 3 things in there. One is entrepreneurship. And as you know, this is a whole nother program of its own, right? But we're going to talk about specifics here. Then we're going to talk about leadership. And it's also on a whole other program of its own, but we're going to talk about something specific here, one or two aspects of it. We're going to talk about compassion and empathy in part of that. So let's talk about the mindset. Under the mindset, you're really thinking as an entrepreneur, we're looking at the one aspect of entrepreneurship, which is what problem can you solve or what opportunity can you create based on the situation that you're in today. Remember, with our resiliency, that means something has happened or changing for you to be able to move forward. So how do you do that? Well, under the entrepreneurship thing, you could go ahead and just write, what problem do you plan to solve? Or what opportunity do you plan to take advantage of to offer something? And you could write that in. So an example would be opportunity, your problem I want to solve is delivering water to people's homes, or delivering business planning, people to be those who are applying for funding, or helping people create a financial forecast, whatever. I see an opportunity to offer a phone, to offer a training, to offer whatever. It doesn't have to be a problem, right? It could be an opportunity. So that's what you're going to write in first. And the reason I say that, because entrepreneurship, of course, I'm not going to go through a definition because you could read that on your own, has so many other aspects to it. And we're talking about just the mindset of it, which is how do you think about something? How do you approach something with your thoughts? And as you know, it's a journey. It's not going to happen overnight. Now, we actually spend somewhere between 15 to 30 minutes just on this photo, decomposing the information in it. Clearly, we don't have time for that today, but I will say that I could spend the next 3 months on this and not be done, because there's just so much that we could learn from it. And the most important thing for our discussion today is to understand that it's a journey, and it's not as clear as you think. And with time, it could be clear, but it could get cloudy again because things can change. So just know that you're riding this journey as you're evolving it, and as you continue to develop it, you may want to think about being ready to adapt to the changes that you may be facing as you take this pathway of entrepreneurship. You got to craft your opportunity, or that you're going to go after, and then you want to move to the leadership mindset. And in this space, specifically in the leadership space, you really want to think about that you may be alone because it's a crisis or something is happening, and now you're being resilient, wanting to continue to move forward with whatever happened. And that resiliency of mindset of leadership is about a couple of things. One is you might be the only one moving forward with what you're doing, because everybody else may be retreating. Remember that. So it might feel alone. You might feel by yourself. You might feel like you're doing something that no one else is doing or wanting to do, or they may even discourage you from doing. So you have to inspire others. The last one in the mindset has actually two components, compassion and empathy, because if something is changing, it's really good to show that you care. And it's not just talks. It is about action. It's about finding ways to relate to the individuals and finding ways to support them. The one thing I want to talk about the mindset, and this is important, I think, that because when things happen, I could easily say, why me? Why this happening to me? What did I do? And I'm not saying that you couldn't be the victim, because many times resiliency comes because someone is being a victim. The mindset of staying as a victim versus becoming victorious, to say it's an opportunity for me to do this or an opportunity for me to do that, could be an opportunity for you to rethink how to take this mindset, and it's a development stage. It's not going to happen overnight, from victim statehood to victorious statehood. All right, let's move in now to what I'm going to call self. So those who've been watching those little clips, I'm hoping that it's now resonating, because I'm digging a little deeper with each one of them. And I'm hoping that you are taking the time to think about okay, we talked about the entrepreneurship, and the leadership could be like, how are you going to overcome being alone, or how do you think you're going to be able to motivate others to join you, or whatever the case is. Now I want to talk about self. And under self, I realized initially we had one box, and then I realized that it actually was two boxes. And the two boxes were really simple. One was about the individual themselves, but the other one was really about who you're surrounding yourself with. And what I learned, because I was working with two different really groups, completely different. One is the entrepreneurs and the business world and the startups and the growth. And one was maybe the government and maybe the nonprofits, or what we may call EDOs and ESOs, economic development organizations, or entrepreneurship support organizations or anything like that. And it became clear that who you are is good. You also need to be aware of who's around you. Because if you're starting a business and all who's around you are people that are working somewhere, it's going to be hard. If you're starting to support individuals and all the people that are around you are trying to figure out themselves what to do, it's also going to be hard. So no matter which box you picked, it's just hard. So what you want to do is think about how you could be aware of what you are and aware of what's around you. So this is what we'll work it up into two. So the first box, talk about you, which is me, right? In this case, me, you, is acknowledging these, I'm going to call them 5 components. And are there more? Yes. These are the components that I felt. By the time you get to these 5, something will change and something will trigger. What are those 5? 1, acknowledging that you may be going through a transition period or challenging time or a period that something needs to happen. So acknowledgement of it is 1. You don't have to put that in the newspaper, but I'm just saying mentally, right? Or at least individually. This is with you. The second is to understand that it's okay to freak out, because you might be thinking, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? It's okay to freak out. The challenge is you can't stay freaked out, okay? You got to freak out for a minute, then you got to move on really quick. What are you going to move on to? Action. Because what we learned is when you move from freaking out to action, it eliminates or brings down your stress level that you're able to act and do something. And then once you do that, you move to action, the first thing you want to do is really check the facts. Because many times what we've learned is the facts that the individuals were following or reading or getting information from were really not facts, someone's opinion. And I appreciate people's opinion, but I want to know the facts. So you acknowledge what's going on, you freak out for a minute, you move to action, you check the facts to make sure that you're really understanding what's going on. And then you need to make sure that you're checking the information source. An example of that, in my case, and in some of the people cases, if someone is telling you you should do ABC, and they're not in the field of the ABC, you might want to check another source that is in that field. If you're trying to sell something overseas and they've never sold anything overseas, it doesn't mean that they don't know anything. It just, they might not know the right information, or they may give you an opinion based on an article that they read that is not necessarily the original article of the country that you're going to ship to. So you might want to just get the source information. That's an example. And then we want to be on what's around you, because what's around you becomes important because they could either support you or they could pull you back. And what you want to do is try to leverage what's around you, meaning who else do you know? What's happening around you? And then you need to let go of what you can't control, because a lot of times when you look around, you're like, well, I can't cross the street. Yeah, you can't cross the street because it's raining. Well, what can you control? Well, I could take an umbrella. Well, I can't do this. That's important. So you got to start letting go of what I call you can control and taking charge of what you can control. So let go of what you cannot control and no control worries. I can't control it, then therefore I can't worry about it. I can't control it, then you can worry about it because you can make a change. And then when you look around you, there might be some challenges, but remember, with every challenge, there's an opportunity. It might not be a good opportunity, it might be a bad opportunity, but there's an opportunity. And when you look around you, you might realize, I got an extra chair. I got an extra chair right here. Maybe I use it for something else. Maybe I repurpose it to put it outside. Maybe I put things on it and I move things around here, all right? This is what I mean by repurpose. And then you have to remember, when you look around you, back to that leadership, you'll notice that all of these things build on the ideas before it with the mindset, right? Is you may have to be the first one stepping in and you may have to lead. You may be the only one leading in that space. I'm going to say that just be careful as you move forward to get stuck somewhere, and just remember, you go back to the mindset, then you could move on to the next item. Let's move into the last, the third box, which is the business/personal. And now what we want to do is dive right really quick. And those who have the book, who bought the workbook, you could actually use the workbook to do this in there, all right? And basically you want to make a list of what I call all the resources that you have. Once you make a list of all the resources, could be product, could be service, could be partners, you have 24 hours, could be you have a resource that you control the price, could be you have a customer list, you have a vendor list. I'm giving you some examples, right? So you can just make a long list of all the things that you have. And then what you want to do is take one of those lists. By the way, your alumni association is a resource that you have. Where you grew up is a resource that you have. Your neighborhood, right? Your neighbor is a resource. Doesn't mean that you will use them or you will talk to them. I'm just saying that it's a resource. Whatever you do with it, it's up to you. You take one of those resources. I have a resource of subscription to this software. That's great. That resource now, we're going to move to the next thing. We take that resource and we ask, how can we leverage this resource? Do I need to get additional training? Do I need to upgrade my software subscription? Do I need to repackage it? Do I need to repurpose it? Do I need to repurpose this chair to be like a moving thing? Remember, we're looking at what you have and then what you could leverage. Once you come up with the list of what you could leverage with that one resource, remember, if you have a long list of resources, then each resource you have to do this exercise for. Take it and see, what can I leverage it? How can I do this? What can I do with this thing? And then once you do that, you're going to come up with what I call, what can you offer? So you decide, hey, I know how to use Adobe. That's fantastic. Maybe you've used it for you. Can you start now using it and offering a service for someone to design their logo, design their page, do something? And that's what we're talking about. So I have something, I could leverage it in a way. Maybe I need to upgrade my subscriptions. Maybe I need to upgrade my skills, but then I could potentially offer this new service or offer this new product or offer it to a customer that I never really talked to before. Maybe there's people who are starting up a business. I used to work only with SMEs. Now I could work with people you're just getting started. And then you want to move to the next one, which is, can I pilot this? Is there a group or someone that I could have them test it, try it, so I could learn from it, so I could modify it, so I could make some changes, so I could learn what else can be done with it, all right? That's really the 4 boxes of the resiliency within the business section. And remember, if it's personal, you could do the same with your home, cars, your second bedroom, whatever, right? I'll just use a quick synopsis of ISM. We actually were always offering our programs in person. Occasionally we offered via Zoom, but it was mainly via Zoom if it was a webinar or a quick meeting. But when we started offering this back in 5 years ago via Zoom, we were able to learn that, hey, people loved it via Zoom, only via Zoom and via Zoom alone. And then we learned that, hey, some people like it via Zoom, some people like it in person, some people like it hybrid. And as a matter of fact, we still offer it till today. 5 years later, we got people who are asking just for Zoom. We got people who are asking for hybrid. And of course, we still have people who ask for fully in person. Not right or wrong. It just allowed us to restructure things. Now, I'm not going to tell you it was easy because we initially picked one program and we made that available online because I didn't want to do what some people did, which basically, if I was delivering it in person, I'm going to deliver it online and it's the same. We didn't do that. We actually took the time to say, all right, since it's in person and there's also at the time people around you, what can we do to make it in a way that people could soak in the information, but also be interactive? So we made it highly interactive. We cut off some materials, we added some materials, we divided up into something called open office hours, or we call it sometimes mastermind classes. So we divided things up so therefore people could take it as they needed, when they needed, based on the program that we're delivering. I'm going to say the last box is moving forward. And the moving forward now is really now talking about how do you operate with all the things that you're doing? Because remember, you figured it out. So how do you operate? You're going to make sure that your time management is really sharp. You're going to make sure that safety and security is still in place, because when something is changing, people may not feel comfortable, okay? And then you need to make sure that your communications, both internally and externally, are really clear and as fast as you can, because you're moving so fast. Sometimes your team may not know what's going on. And by the way, that will always happen. I'm just saying that try to be as much as you can intentional to communicate both internally and externally. Now that I finished the canvas with you, I want to just highlight a couple of things. One, this canvas, we've seen people use it for startups and we've seen people use it for growth. And that's great to see. I'm going to just say a couple of things. Startup mode versus growth mode is completely different, because when you startup mode, your whole concept, I call it survivor mode, especially at least the entrepreneurs we work with. And survivor mode just basically means you get what you can get and you keep as much as you can before you spend it. Where growth mode, it might be that even before you get anything, you're spending, all right? And that growth mode can scare some people, can be, nervous, can make some people nervous, but just know that it's two different things, not right, not wrong. And we have a whole actually a program about from startups to growth, and the mind shift and the actions are needed to happen. And one example I will just use, startups are messy. They're not easy to follow. And you're really kind of like, I think Steve Blank does the best job explaining it. You're really in search of what is really your business model. Where growth mode is you're trying to scale something that you've somewhat not necessarily mastered, but have figured out how to do. All right, so that's a big difference. I want you to be understanding that those thoughts will shape your mindset, your self-awareness and who's around you, how you make a list of what you have and how you leverage it, and follow that process and how you even move forward. So take a minute and think about, are you thinking startup or are you thinking growth? Because this could be two different things. When things were going down, some people were looking for businesses and buildings to buy, while others were trying to get out of. So this is why it depends on you and your situation. I hope that this canvas that I just shared with you today can give you a new look back to that image that I gave you and convert your black and white or words that you may know today into a way that is structured, that you could follow, that you could potentially be guided. And of course, you're welcome to join any of our classes or master classes. And we offer this obviously online as well, whether self-paced or in person or via coach with our coaches. It's available. But of course, I just shared with you an hour worth of information that I'm hoping that you could learn from it something. Since I'm in Detroit today and we saw with Detroit versus London, I want to share with you this one building that I was lucky enough to see the experiment in it, at least from the outside and a little bit from the inside with the work that I'm doing in the city. And this is the first Cadillac dealership in the world. It's actually where they made the Cadillacs for years. It's the Dog Leash building, and it's literally, I'm sitting there in a building, and it's literally across the street from me from where I'm seated. And I was fortunate enough to drive by it every day since 2003, roughly. And with time, someone wanted to have a different vision for it back in 2014, when the Dog Leash brothers decided to sell the building and be out of that Cadillac dealership business, at least for that building, okay? And then what I learned is someone had this vision for it, and they wanted to convert it to a biotech building that belongs to the university that's, controls many of the buildings here. So taking this building that you have and converting something, I also feel it was a time back in those who were watching the news or following the news is, around the time or around the years of city of Detroit was going through some financial difficulties and some stress, bankruptcy, and all these other things happening. Areas are being stressed out, but someone had a vision. And this is what I mean by resiliency, is really starts with the mindset of seeing an opportunity or seeing something, and also be taking a leadership position, say we could do something with it. And then also showing compassion and empathy, because they wanted to make sure that the building get preserved versus just gets gone, because there's a lot of history into that building, all right? And thank you to Google, I was able to take a screenshot for the same building from the same corner. And you can see how physically, the building is still there, by the way, fully in place. Nothing was touched in the building, at least from the outside, besides making it cleaner and prettier and whatever. But you can see this angle. I could use my pencil again, right here. Oops, let's just see if I could use my pencil. It's the same building right there, but something happened in front of it, which was the parking lot. Now it becomes this nice glass thing. And then this building, unfortunately, is gone. And that's some of the changes that happened. And then now you got to see some trees and greens. So although it's the same corner, you can see this building right here is still there at the time, all right, of this photo. So with that being said, back to this resiliency canvas, someone saw something, and I'm hoping that I'm inspiring you to think about what you could see where you are and what you could do with what we're shared today. And if you look at it today, it's a different building, it's a different place. So I'm hoping that you take what we've learned and you make it for you, right? So you could say you made it. You already made it just by being here. So before you go, I usually like to say, is there one action that you could do from what we learned today that you could start doing today, or maybe next week, or maybe next morning? I'd love for you to write it down. I'll pause for a minute so you could write it down. And then we could move to the next slide. Make sure it's actionable. For those who are watching it, you could pause it and write it down. And then, of course, I always love to hear from you. If there are any final thoughts or reflections or comments or questions, feel free to do that. And since we're wrapping it up here on the online version, feel free to do that in the chat or in the comments for those who are watching a replay. And then, as you know, those who've been attending any of the sessions, we always like to ask one word about today's discussion. You could put that and share with us. Thank you so much. Those who are interested, you're welcome to download my contact information, stay in touch. And those who would like to stay connected on LinkedIn, that's my QR code. You could use your phone to do that. And thank you. If you'd like to give us a feedback, I would really appreciate it. The reason why I'm able to share what I'm sharing today is because of the amazing feedback that we've gotten, good and bad, right? That we learned from throughout the process of developing this program and many others. Till next time, I want to say thank you so much for being with us. Congratulations of your commitments and your desire to continue moving forward. And thank you for being with us this week as well during the Global Entrepreneurship Week. Till next time, have a good day.